Welcome to the Persistence Project, where we talk all things strength training from mindset to max effort. I'm your host, Rob Allen. I'm a strength coach and a multiply powerlifter. I love talking to other athletes, coaches and practitioners within the strength space about what they do, how they do it and why they do it. This episode, like always, is brought to you by my awesome sponsors, Jacked and Juiced Apparel, East Coast Supplements in Dubbo and Hunter Performance Physio in Maitland and Raymond Terrace. I think this podcast is only really possible due to them, so I thank them very much, and I encourage you to go into the show notes and click on their pages of Instagram or websites, check them out, give them a follow and see what they do. All right, today on the podcast we have Mark Roskell. He is a single ply powerlifter. He's been competing since 1993. He has a best single ply total of 755 at 105 in the 105 kilo class. And Mark, thanks very much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. We've been trying to...
It's been a few months in the making, hasn't it?
Yeah. See, funny because we live in the same area and we've not run into each other or crossed paths yet, but I'm glad we can finally...
Twice in 2 days now.
Yeah, I know. It's good. It's usually how it goes. Once you see someone once, you start seeing them all the time. So I'm sure at Woolies we'll run into each other or something.
Sure will.
Thanks for coming on. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. So where all these podcasts start is how you originally got into the gym and found strength training. So where did that start for you?
Well, there's only one person there. That's my father. He inspired me when I was a little kid. I just wanted to be like him. He was always looked at him as a giant of a man, but he was only my size basically. But I remember once as a kid jumping in bed on Saturday morning or something, just a little fella talking about things, and for some reason the subject came up about how strong are you or something, and he said, I benched 400 pounds. He was about 24 years old at the time, working in Mount Isa. I'd say, I'm going to bench 500. I didn't even know what a bench press was at the time. Yeah. So I'm going to do 500, and luckily many years later, I was 39 I think when I'd done it, and I rang him up and I said, I just knocked off your perch, and hung up on him. And he said, yeah, good on you. Yeah. It took a while, but yeah, got there. But I've always been fascinated by strength, and played, again, my dad played rugby league, and I said, right, I'm playing rugby league. There, you can play soccer, play what you want. So, no, you played footy, I'm playing footy, So he thought, take me down there, it won't last long, and 18 years later, I'm still playing, and I got into rugby league and then got into health and fitness. Wayne Pearce was my favourite player, still is, and he was mad about his fitness and strength training and all that sort of thing. So that got me into the extra training apart from just your 2 nights a week at footy. And then I started, 15, I think I got my own set of weights in the bedroom, lifting the weights, and that's sort of where it all started. And then a few years later, there was some local pals who had an exhibition up the main street one Christmas or something like that. And I thought, that's what I've got to do. And go up the library back in the early 90s and see there's no real books on powerlifting. So anything on strength trainers, basically just bodybuilding magazines at the time. So then I just started doing the waste of that, but always wanted to sort of test myself, but didn't want to go the bodybuilding route straight away. So then I found powerlifting and went in a comp, early 90s, and 93 it was, and there was one dude there, I think his name was Peter Mannion. He was the state treasurer at the time. He came up to me and said, I think you've got a bit of a future, you've got a bit of potential. And like, to a young kid coming through something like that, it would just sort of lit a fire in me. And the flames are still burning at the moment, but they're sort of dwindling a bit here and there as I get older.
Yeah. So how old were you in 93?
19.
Yeah.
19, first comp. So I started off my first comp, I was in the 90s, but I was probably about 84 kilo. My second comp, I wanted to bulk up. I wanted to get closer to 90, but I weighed in at 82 and a half. So I had one comp at 82 and a half. Yeah. So, upwards from there.
So when you first competed, like it was love at first sight kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or love at first comp, I should say.
Love at first feel.
Yeah. Did you know the rules and stuff when you were doing it, or are you just kind of winging it on that first comp?
Well, I had a bit of an idea, but I mean, like that comp that I think you might have seen the video of, I had a pair of gym shorts on and a Tui's new T-shirt and a wrist guard because I had a sore wrist from work. Yeah. And you wouldn't be allowed to wear any of those things today. The bench was homemade. It was all made well to specifications and that, but it wasn't like a bought one or anything, or like a Leco or anything like that. Yep. And it was. I didn't know a lot of my first serious comp, which was I think. No, hang on, it might have been my third comp. I had. I thought, in the gym, at the old YMCA underneath the RSL at Toronto. Mm-hmm. I squatting. Dad was watching me, and I think I went up to about 160, 165, and I thought, I won't go any deeper, I'll hurt myself, but that felt really strong. So at the comp, I got someone to call me depth because I'd never done it before in a comp. 125, that's nice news. I went right, down, up. I just kept going down. I was like, shit, that's a lot deeper than what I've been training. Yeah. So I had to borrow a set of knee wraps, and I barely got me second attempt. And so that was a bit of a reality check, but it was fun. Yeah.
And so when you first then started doing more comps, and like if you look at your open powerlifting, and we've discussed this before, but it's not all there, but what is there is extensive. Like you've done a lot of competitions. How many comps did you do in that first couple of years?
Well, there was 3 comps in the first 3 years, and I think the first 2 were both in 93.
Yeah.
And I was still playing rugby league at the time, and I had aspirations of playing for the Balmain Tigers because Wayne Pearce did.
Yeah.
But in reality, that was never going to happen. I think I was an okay player, but I wasn't at that level. And I thought, well, I'm 22, 96. Mm-hmm. Next year will be the juniors. That'll be my last chance to do anything in powerlifting in the juniors. So I took that year off rugby league. I'd done a bench comp, the state bench titles in September of 96, state record. And I thought, well, I'm going to do this next year. Mm-hmm. And I registered and paid me money and entered the national juniors in Melbourne. They were in April 97. But I hadn't done a qualifying comp at that time. So I'd paid the airfare and everything to go down there, accommodation, all that, entry fee. But I had to do a comp in March, the month before, to qualify for the nationals. So that was at Toronto, the old YMCA, and mm-hmm. qualified and went down there. And there was a slight change in the lifting schedule, like at last minute. And I was supposed to lift in the afternoon, but I was going to lift first thing in the morning. We were going to fly down on the Saturday morning, my parents and I. Mm. And so the hierarchy, they said, are you definitely in the 90s? I said, I'll only be about 87 or something. Righto, well, I'll book you a flight. And I got down there early that morning. And I was thinking, geez, I hope Mum and Dad get here before I start lifting and that. And anyway, I warmed up and walking out for my first squat, I got a whack on the back and he said, let's get into it, mate. And there's Dad standing there, Mum's waving. And so they just got there just before I started. Hadn't checked into their room or anything, I don't think. And so that was my first national titles. And it started from there. I knew I was never going to go back to footy then. Yeah. I still get the feeling, maybe I could put the boots on just for one game, Yeah. But no, that's not going to happen, I don't think.
And so in the 90s, in Australia, it was only Powerlifting Australia at that point, wasn't it? The Capo started.
I think, well, there 90s? Was the WDFPF or the ADFPF, but they were quite small, I think. Mm-hmm. They were still around even into the early 2000s.
Yeah.
There was Capo or GPC, or I'm not really sure what they were called then because I wasn't involved with them, but there was, I think that was about it. Just those 3. And PA was like the major player, for want of a better term, yeah.
It's definitely the biggest federation
in
the 90s. And everything was a single ply mainly then. There was no raw or equipped.
Yeah, no.
You could compete raw if you wanted, but you're up against equipped guys. So when did you first get into equipment?
Well, that 96, that state championship bench in September 96, that's the first time I had a bench shirt on.
Yep.
And then the following comps in March and the nationals in Melbourne had the suits on then. Yep. But I tried some of those older suits on probably 4 months ago because I'm back down to 90 now.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, holy hell, I'm not getting much out of this. At the time, I thought, oh, this is incredible. Yeah. But now looking back, I thought there's really not a lot of help out of them. Yeah. But they gave you a little bit, so it was more for injury protection and it happened to give you a bit more as opposed to pure performance, Yeah.
What were your first shirts that you wore in the bench shirt?
Just a standard Inza Blast shirt.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's all it was. Yeah.
And did you ever was there ever denim in single ply?
No,
was
well,
always
not that
poly.
I know of. No,
Yeah.
it's always been poly, yeah.
Yeah. And have you stuck with the Inza stuff mainly, or have you
In the
jumped around?
2000s, I've tried, because I was right into Westside training, elite fitness, all that sort of thing, and they were highlighting the metal gear. I used the metal gear quite a bit in the mid-2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I tried Titan, but I didn't like it. The metal gear, it was extreme, really extreme. Like, first time, it took me a couple of months to get something to touch the chest when I had a shirt on that was a size bigger than recommended.
Yeah.
It was just, I had no blood spurting out my nose. It was just that tight, and it was. I was getting headaches just trying to bench press, and I thought I'd love to get another 10, 20 kilo, but I want to be awake when it happens, sort of thing. So I ended up going back to Inza and tried a few different Inza ones, and I'm pretty happy with what I got now.
Yeah, cool. So 96, you started taking it seriously. You knew you weren't going to go back to football.
Yep.
What did your training look like at that time?
Well, there wasn't a lot available, as in information in the 90s. You're looking at bodybuilding magazines, 10 weeks to a bigger bench press. It was just all pec decks and incline press. It'd probably help you get stronger, but I wanted to look at it scientifically.
Yeah.
I could never find anything like that. Ed Cohn was a big influence. He trained very basically, but he got good results out of that. I didn't have time to do the Boris Shako style training, 3, 4, 5 days a week, 2 hours a session. It's just impossible with my work and that. And it was late 96 or early 97 I came across a Powerlifting USA magazine, and it started talking about Louie Simmons, Westside Barbell training. And there was another article, someone else, one of the lifters wrote how he trains. And I thought, that's what I've been looking for. 45 to 60 minutes, explosive training, upper body, lower body, working weaknesses. So I started implementing those sort of things in the mid-late 90s, and didn't really go into it 100% for a couple of years. I was mainly the linear type stuff with a little bit of speed bench or speed squats and that sort of thing. But late 90s, I went into it 100%. And to this day, I'm still doing it, adjusting it for my age and current injuries. Well, not that there's a lot at the moment, but over the years there has been. So, yeah, basically the Westside, or conjugate, as it's popular to say now.
Yeah. And so in the 90s, obviously, with the articles that were in Powerlifting USA and the stuff that was available, how easy was it to make sense of the method?
At first it was very difficult for me anyway. I've been going through my old training books, putting them all into A4 folders.
Oh, yeah.
I got like 7 folders this thick of all my training, not from 92 when I was in high school. And every page, there's like a full A4 page of trying to figure out the stuff. And I've got my training on this page, and on this page I've got, percent benching, percent squatting, and all this sort of thing. How does it work? I'm trying to write down like study notes for studying for a HSC exam. And I've got A4 page after page after page of notes, and I look back at it now in the last few weeks, and I must have gone through a lot of pens doing all that. But it was, at first it was very difficult. And I think even to this day and age, some people who are new to it get very confused by it. And one good explanation I've heard, which I use when people talk to me about it, I thought, well, one day you're doing explosive work and one day you're doing max effort. That's for upper and lower. And you try and work your weaknesses both days after that, after the main core things. So if you're doing explosive work, your heavy work or fast and slow work, and then working your weaknesses, it kind of makes sense rather than just going, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 5, it just sort of made sense. Yeah. But it was still confusing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's easy to get lost in the rabbit hole of conjugate and Westside, the methods, and it's easy to kind of try and follow what they did.
Oh, yeah.
There, which is not necessarily going to work in your context as a single ply guy or a raw guys who try it and they're like, well, you got to take into account.
Yep.
Westside was a multiply gym, so all their weaknesses were going to probably be similar to what you would find for multiply guys.
Yep.
Those weaknesses are going to be different for a single ply guy and a raw guy. So you got to change the method.
For sure.
bits that you plug into it. The method itself is pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's just you got to know what you need to work on.
And that's the hard thing. Like even to this day, it's still trying to think. Okay, last comp, my bum is shooting up too quick.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the weakness for that? And okay, I've got to do more glute work or something. I think that helped. The previous comp in March of this year, 6 months ago, I'd done a record squat, but me ass just shot up too quick and ended up doing half a good morning.
Yeah.
But I got it up, but my back was ruined and I couldn't bench, I couldn't deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this goal for the last couple of years to make this Nationals my 100th comp. So I had to finish this comp. So I said to my wife and son, look, you may as well go home. I'm not going to put my shirt on or deadlift suit. I just lied down in the back of the gym down at Lift 3 at Tuggerah.
Yeah.
When it was bench press time, I'd hobble up and just take a token bench. And I went and lie down for another couple of hours and then do a token deadlift. And I got me total. And, I didn't want to bomb out.
Yeah.
But, I thought after that I'd done a lot more glute work. And I listened to one of the top lifters. I can't remember who it was, but Sebastian Oreb was talking about bracing from the feet up and the knees out and that sort of thing, and that sort of struck a chord with me. And so a lot more glute work, and I was thinking of bracing like that all the time, and I was squatting at the Nationals and got another record and no sore back. So I think that worked. But it is tough because your weakness is chop and change. You make that strong and something else is falling behind a bit.
Yeah, so you got to kind of always be on top of where stuff's breaking down.
Yeah.
Know what you got to adjust and go from there, rather than, and I think that's the appeal of like linear and block training, is that you just kind of do the one thing. Mm-hmm. It's easy. You just go, okay, we're going to do this. You just squat, bench, deadlift, and do a select few accessories and just progress it linear and work on whatever for that block. Whereas conjugate, it gets a bit confusing because you're like, well, what do I got to work on?
The varieties are endless. A two board, close, medium, wide grip, bands or chains, well, there's a dozen variations or something. Can get lost in too many variations and not really attacking weaknesses. One of my friends from Melbourne, Dan DePasqua, mentioned that to me when we were chatting about programming that recently, and or messaging, not mentioned it, but don't get too caught up in too many variations. And that can be a trap sometimes because it's attractive doing stuff in the gym that looks weird, weird kind of way. Yeah,
or it's fun, or like it's easy to like fall into that trap of doing the fun variations that you know you can push the weight on, like board presses and stuff with chains. They look impressive and you feel like you've achieved something, but have you? Sometimes you may not have. Does Dan train at Elite in Spotswood?
I don't know where he does now. I think he used to.
Yeah.
But
he's a multiply guy, yeah?
He does, yeah. I don't know how often he's competed, but he is very busy with his work and that, yeah.
Yeah, I know a couple of dudes that train with him and used to train with that crew at Elite. One of my mentors, Dave Tran Kong, I don't know if you know him.
I know the name.
Yeah, he would have been PA around similar times to you. He's been competing a long time.
Yep.
He used to train with that crew there at Elite.
Marty Gervin was with him too.
Yep, I know that name. Right, so 96, late 90s, you get into Westside training. You start developing that system around your own weaknesses and your own kind of what you need and what you can achieve in your gym, because you've always trained at home too.
From probably up until I had power racks actually up until probably early / mid 2000s. I started training at home.
Yeah.
But I actually had built my own equipment before that, but at the Toronto YMCA, which moved out to Carey Bay, the squash centre, there were some powerlifters who used to work there. Paul Waters, he was like 56 kilo, benched over 100, deadlift 180 or something, very strong little fella. I shouldn't say little fella, he's not a kid, he's older than me, but he was very strong. He used to work there until I made a reverse hyper, right, and bolted it to the floor at the YMCA there. Made a power rack, put it in there, so I made them for myself to train. Yeah. So I could train with those things, but I didn't care who used them. But when I got there, I wanted to be able to use it.
They're not still there, are they?
No. I found the original power rack at the Scorpions Rugby League Club.
Oh yeah,
where I used to play down at Toronto, and went down there in March last year. It's still there up above the juniors dressing sheds in the gym they made.
Yeah, right. So your trade's always been fabrication, Boilermaker. Yeah. So you make a lot of your own stuff, and Toronto Barbell is your little company that you do. You sell merch and you make equipment. It's primarily special order stuff now.
It is, yeah.
When did you start making stuff like that?
August 2nd, 2005.
Yeah.
So I'll be 20 years next year.
Yeah.
I'd been making my own stuff like this for a little while, because it was peeing me off not being able to get stuff like a reverse hyper or a glute ham raise or power racks with a sumo base, or the Westside hole spacing as it's called these days. Just couldn't get it. If you wanted it, you had to order it from America, which made it ridiculously expensive. Mm-hmm. So a couple of people found out that I'd made some for myself and said, hey, how about make this for me? I said, oh, yeah, right. So ended up making a few things, and it just sort of went from there. Mm-hmm. So I have sold some gear over to America. I don't know why they bought it off me, because they could get it from America probably cheaper. Yeah. But they wanted it, so I made it for them. Yeah. Nothing to Western Australia. The freight was too much. Yeah. But basically up and down the east coast, Australia, sold a fair bit of gear in the last 20 years.
Yeah. And you make a lot of stuff that is kind of comes like, you would say that it's similar to all the stuff that comes out of Westside kind of training and conjugate training, stuff that there's obviously a bunch of stuff that you make. Yep. There's a lot of that stuff like, power pole and reverse hypers and mono hooks and boards and boxes and all that stuff that you've needed in your own training that you've made. It's obviously filled somewhat of a hole in the market in Australia because there's not a lot of that training. How was it in the 90s and 2000s when you were training like that? Did many people train like that?
None that I know of. The circle of people that I trained with, I'd turn up to boards in the gym. What the hell are you doing? I'm board pressing. I might have chains to make the top end of the weight heavier. And why don't you just put more weight on the bar, which is a common thing. And then you try to explain that, you want it to get heavier and heavier the further up you get. The weight's just going to be constant everywhere, I remember the first time I had tried bands. It didn't have a sumo-based power rack, so I had to tilt the power rack up, tie the bands around the bottom, then tie it around but then they're snapping halfway through a set because they were thin ones, not meant for it, and I've got the bar like this, and a lot of experimentation. But it was, I used to keep me first set, a few sets of chains, keep them at the gym, locked up with my weights. I had my own weights, 20 kilo plates at the gym and that, and a frame I made in the old spa room, had them locked up, so I go and get the key, unlock it, carry all my weights into the gym, do my workout, carry it all back and lock them up and put the chains in there. And I wouldn't be able to do that in a normal commercial gym, but like I said, Paul Waters, the guy that worked there, he said, yeah, no worries, that's really good. And I don't know whether he just liked laughing at me or not, but,
I've been there. I used to
good times.
Cart my chains in. I had my son had a little one of those mini skateboards. And I took that off him. I had a big plastic bucket and I'd put my 50 kilos worth of chains in there and I'd wheel it into the commercial gym. And where I used to live was like a country town, Victoria. So powerlifting was rare, let alone, conjugate method training. Everyone's like, what the hell are you doing? So that was always fun. But I did that for 3 or 4 years of taking stuff in and out of the gym.
I still get weird looks today. Yeah. We were talking about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Dragging a sled up and down the footpath out the front and walking around with that power pole, the big black thing sticking out and weights on it, but walking up and down the street like this and driving past and tooting the horn but that's sort of what attracted me to it, because where I grew up and the circle of people that I grew up with, go to the club Friday night, Saturday night, play footy Saturday or Sunday, train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that sort of thing, which I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all that, going out and playing footy and that, but I don't know, there was something in me that always wanted to break out of that and do something totally different. Mm-hmm. And when I started enjoying my first few comps of powerlifting and no one else was doing it, I saw like people saying, "Oh, you've got to come back to play next year." I said, "No." The more a few people tried to say, "Hey, come back and play next year," the more I was saying no, just because they were trying to make me. And I said, yeah, so I haven't looked back. I mean, like every now and then, like I said before, I wouldn't mind throwing the boots on for one game, but I don't know if I could keep up with it these days.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things in an individual sport. It's easier to kind of make it forge your own identity as opposed to being part of a team and like you're doing something a little bit different. Gives you this kind of sense of like I'm doing my own thing, and it means a lot, and you can give it this elevated kind of importance. Where other people might look at it and go, why don't you just play footy like the rest of us, or come out on the weekend instead of dragging the sled around like a crazy person. But obviously it meant something to you to really push it. So through the early 2000s stuff, were you how dedicated to the sport? You've obviously worked as a Boilermaker the whole time, so you got a pretty physical job. How dedicated did you get?
Well, I mean, looking back at it now, hindsight's always 20/20, as they say, but there's obviously a bit of OCD there. I mean, most powerlifters probably like that, maybe. Yeah. But it did become a bit of an obsession. There's no doubt about that. I can admit that. But I don't know. I don't think it really stood out, but as a kid and even as a teenager, when you go, through those teenage years into adulthood and that, I don't think I had a lot of self-confidence. Something would happen, I'd be like, oh, shit, am I going to be able to do this? Well, and when I started powerlifting, it felt like a real positive. I wasn't getting that enjoyment out of rugby league anymore. I hadn't for probably 2 or 3 seasons. And I was feeling much more positive here, so I just went with it. And yeah, like I say, it became an obsession. I just, if Louie Simmons said, you got to do 300 sets of speed squats every Saturday, I would have done 305. It was just
tunnel vision.
Yeah, just total. I do think it's probably caused some injuries over the years and some minor issues these days, but I'm on top of that. But it did give me a lot more positive, I don't know, self-worth or whatever you want to call it. I wasn't one of those kids that, the skinny kid gets sand kicked in their face at the beach. Nothing like that. But I was probably, in the teenage years, I was probably a little bit of a loner. I had a lot of friends, but it was just something there that when I started powerlifting, it just reinforced my self-image a hell of a lot. Yeah. And that was very important, I think. I think if every kid or any adult can find something like that makes them feel better, I think you got to embrace it. Yeah. I might have embraced it a bit too hard at times, but it's better doing that than going down the wrong path or something.
Well, ultimately, and there's going to be negatives to anything that you give.
Oh, for sure.
100% of your effort to. If you get really involved in any sport, any endeavour, any path in life, there's going to be negatives because some stuff's going to get pushed to the wayside. It's going to get negatively impacted by this positive pursuit. Yep. If the end product is ultimately positive, then I think that's something to strive for. But I think that's a really good point in that it doesn't have to be powerlifting. It doesn't have to be rugby league. It doesn't have to be anything. There needs to be something that ultimately is positive that you can find passion and self-worth from.
Well, there's you look up on Instagram, Mark Roskell Photography. I going through some tough times, I'm guessing 3-4 years ago. And I started getting up early. I was in and out of work at the time. The days I had off work, I'd be getting up early, travelling within half hour of home, taking sunrise photos. And the days I was doing that, I was feeling a lot more positive. And like we talk about, it doesn't matter what the passion is, you can get up and do something positive, and could be taking sunrise photos, it could be powerlifting. It gives you a bit of, makes the days more worthwhile, more positive. Yeah.
It ultimately gives you something bigger than yourself, even if it's just a picture of the sunrise that happens every day.
Yeah.
That's a bigger pursuit than just you sitting in your feelings of whatever feelings they are, negative feelings or the experiences that you're going through that are causing that pain. You've then turned it outward and gone, all right, this is my positive pursuit. If you've got that goal to work towards, then that's going to be hopefully something that turns it around.
Oh, for sure.
But getting out of that kind of culture, that sport and party culture that are around those kind of teenage sports like football, in whichever discipline, like I grew up in Victoria, so I'm an AFL.
Yep.
It was the same thing. I really withdrew from it because of the culture associated with it. I didn't like the boys' club party, roughhousing women, all that sort of average kind of.
Yeah.
I don't want to go as far to say degenerate, but it's kind of like, it's just kind of nothing. It's like you play footy and you go out and party. It's like whatever. Like I had bigger things in mind for my own life. So I got into music. That was my thing.
Yep.
I didn't find the gym till later, but I wish I'd have found it earlier. But so competing through those times, getting really into it, you have always been Powerlifting Australia, or you've always competed in drug-tested federations.
Yes.
And one thing I have noticed looking through some of your old photos from back in the day, which are great because you've documented everything. So you should go to Toronto Barbell Instagram and check out Mark's history there, because there's videos from that 93 comp and there's videos from the 90s and stuff that you don't see on Instagram these days. And it's part of Australian powerlifting history that's really awesome that it's there and you've put it on a digital platform so people can see
Sentimental in my old age.
Yeah. Well, you got to. And you've got a YouTube channel where there's those comps on it too, don't you?
Yeah. There's it's not as updated as the Instagram.
Yeah.
But there's a lot on there too. Yeah.
So going through some of the old photos, I saw that you were very proud of the drug-free, competing drug-tested, and there was I remember seeing a T-shirt that was something about being drug-free. Do you remember that T-shirt?
That I was wearing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well...
Tell me about that kind of culture within powerlifting.
Well, that T-shirt you're probably thinking of, it had like a hand crushing a needle.
Yeah, that's it.
And that was my original logo.
Oh.
I thought, make a statement and that sort of thing. But those comps, 3, 4, maybe 5 times a year. And a lot of them I do the bench press only and the full comp, so there's 2 comps.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't been 100 separate competitions.
Yeah.
A lot of them have been combined. It was literally like a family reunion 3 or 4 times a year. There'd be 20, if there was 25 people, 25 to 30 people at a comp, it was a big comp. There's usually 2 or 3 at most ladies in there, and it was the same ones nearly every time. Lovely people. Haven't seen many of them for a long time now, but yeah, it was very underground, and that sort of attracted me as well. That aspect of it, it's not mainstream sport, and but yeah, the comps then they were like a family unit. Everyone would help each other. There's no egos there. I think I don't know. Stuff started going downhill probably the late 2000s, I think. Got a bit splintered.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those comps back then in the 90s and 2000s, I really enjoyed them. Yeah, it was, like I say, it was like a family reunion.
And so within the tested federations, because there was untested federations going on at the same time, was there like a culture centred around that being like we're the drug-free lifters?
Yeah, I think so. There's always people come up positive every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't constant, but you'd always say, someone's been banned or whatever. So, but yeah, that didn't happen very often that I know of. I know I used to get drug tested quite a bit, especially in the late 2000s and late 90s, mid 2000s. Yep. I got drug tested a fair bit. I haven't for quite a few years now, but nothing's changed. But yeah, we actually got to know the drug testers quite well. I actually got I was doing security work at workers' clubs and that, and I'd be getting a phone call while I'm on the door at Dora Creek Workers Club. Come out, we need a drug test.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I'm at work at the moment. We have to do it tomorrow morning. Okay, then no problem. I woke up the next morning. I had something wrong with my eye. I couldn't go in. I said, look, I've been to the emergency. I've had steel cut out of my eye from work the previous day. It didn't start playing up until after I left my security job. Mm. And they're thinking, hello, he's trying to avoid the drug test. So they end up coming. I'm lying on the lounge with an eye patch. They come out to the house at Toronto and drug test me at home. Because you get a certain amount of time from when you're notified to when you had to get tested. So, yeah, they'd come and drug test. I've been drug tested at a friend's house when they had to drug test 2 or 3 of us from local area. Okay, we'll go over to his house and we all drug test there. One of my first drug tests, it might have been after that 96 comp, my first state record. I got drug tested there and I had the sample, and then I'm there with the drug testing official and I walked out and they called my name out for my trophy. And I said, oh, here, Christine, mind this, will you? And she said, oh, what's this? I asked my sample, and that's my sister standing there, and I just walked off. You probably wouldn't be allowed to do that these days because it still wasn't sealed or anything. I don't think at that time. It was afterwards, but I didn't want to take it up when I got my medal and stand there with a cup of urine, So I said, just mind this for a second and walked off. But it was good times back then.
Yeah. And so what's drawn you to kind of competing in the tested federations? Apart from kind of that's where you got introduced to powerlifting.
Yep.
Most people, where they get introduced to it, that's where they stay.
Yep.
Obviously, you've kind of stayed with it a long time. So is there something about that competing in those federations that's kind of kept you there?
Yeah, well, probably a couple of things. Mainly my own personal ideals. If I couldn't do it with what mum and dad gave me, I didn't want to be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, you done that? I'd be wondering how much of that record I done was a substance and how much was me. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know the maximum what I could do. And also a big part of it was all the people around the local area and in, say, Sydney to Kempsey and Newcastle, mainly with Newcastle, they all competed in that federation. So if I wanted to compete with GPC or CAPO or whatever, or another federation, whatever there is, I'd have to travel quite a fair distance as opposed to drive 10 or 15 kilometres or 5Ks down the road. Yeah. So that was a bit of a no-brainer as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, those two things combined for sure.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing. Like, obviously I compete in an untested federation. I came up through Powerlifting Australia and had planned to go into that that trajectory of competing through Powerlifting Australia, and then I kind of fell in love with wraps and monos. Yep. So I was like, I want to do that. That looks way more fun. But everyone should compete where they want to compete. I think having the whole natties versus non-natties or all this stuff, who cares? If that's how you feel about it, then you should do what
makes you happy, as long as it's not hurting anyone else.
And it should suit your morals. If that is a deeply held belief that you want to do what you can to your own genetic potential, then all power to you. That's good. I think that's good.
There's one thing, we'll probably get to it a bit later, but just briefly, I hadn't competed for probably 3 to 4 years and wanted to get back on the platform, so to speak. And that's one thing that attracted me to APL was the fact that they had tested, untested, wraps, multiply, single ply, raw. They had all these divisions. So if you wanted to use gear and use multiply or whatever, monolift, you can do that. Mm-hmm. If you want to do single ply, walkout squats, you can do that as well. Just don't try and, I don't want to say use the C word, the cheat word, but don't try and do what you're not supposed to do in one of the other divisions, Yeah. Which I think, it's encouraging more people into the sport. Mm-hmm. And that can only be a good thing if there's more people involved overall.
Yeah. Well, I talked about this with Courtney Miller when she was on.
Yep, I've seen that.
Because she's gone on to APL as well to run APL comps, and I think that's one of the more positive things that they're doing is having that, and for lack of a better word, inclusivity of everyone.
Yeah.
But it gives everyone an opportunity to go, okay, well, you want to do tested and sleeves, great. Like you just said, you've got every opportunity. You don't have to be in a federation. It seems what these federations do, because there's a lot of, and I'll be one of those people that says it's drug tested, not drug free.
Big difference.
I'd like to think that most people are drug free, but there's a significant amount of people cheating. And from every conversation I ever had with Robert Wilkes, he will attest to that as well. Not that his word is much good anymore, but he did do a lot of good for the sport.
He's done a lot, but yeah,
until he's sour.
Probably should be careful what I say through my experience.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's unfortunate that people who do a lot of good for things can undo things so severely. So one action, I think a lot of people might defend a position and go, "Wow, he just fucked up once," and like blah blah blah. It's like, it doesn't outweigh the good that they did. Like, well, it kind of does. Unfortunately, they did do a lot of good, and what happened was unfortunate. And I don't want to speak specifically about Wilkes, but in general, people usually make a big enough mistake to completely tarnish every positive thing they ever did.
That's right. And unfortunately, it's the way a lot of people go. They remember the bad things easily because they leave the biggest stain.
Yeah.
And,
and sometimes rightly so.
Sometimes
the stain is worth avoiding and throwing out at all costs. But, yeah, one thing that he talked about a lot was at that higher level there was a lot of cheating, particularly from the Russians. And I can say all this because I'm not affiliated with them, and it's just hearsay at this point. But at a very high level, there was a lot of cheating, which would be frustrating for the majority of the sport who are trying to do the right thing.
Well, the only way to have a drug-free federation is to test every single lifter before they set on the platform, and if it's positive, don't let them go on the platform.
Yeah.
But who's going to spend that much money?
Yeah.
That's the only way to be completely drug-free.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just got to do the best you can, I suppose. And I think the APL, they can have targeted testing, but every drug-tested comp, the top 10% tested. So that seems pretty reasonable.
When you look at it in the context of what, has been said about what APU have done over the last 3 years, which is not a lot in terms of drug testing, that seems to be a better option if you just blanket go, right, this is how much is getting done, every single competition.
Yeah.
And you factor that into your costs running the competition, then and you can't not do it. It's not optional. It's 10%, or you can do more if you want to spend more money. Yep. But it's a blanket 10%, and I think that's a very good thing for the sport. Yeah. Because it gives it way more integrity than just saying, hey, we're going to test, and then it turns out, they maybe test Tom, Dick and Harry, who they know are going to piss clean all the time, and they don't test anybody else.
Well, I started hitting national records in 2015 when I was... Actually, that was, 2015, I think, just when I hit the Masters.
Yep.
And I was still with PA at the time and had a big falling out with PA. And then I got a hernia and didn't lift at the Nationals a couple of months later. That happened 2 weeks before the Nationals. And didn't lift with them ever again. And then started when APU started up, and I hit several state and national records, quite a few with APU. And none of those national records were drug tested. And so that's 9 years I've been hitting national records, and none of them been drug tested. But there's no chance of I'd fail a drug test. I know that, but it has surprised me. Not one of them has been drug tested.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I understood, at least when PA were running things through being the IPF affiliate, was that any podium, any record were instantly tested.
Who was that?
Powerlifting Australia. That's what I understood it as anyway. I know that at a high level at least, like at a national championships and beyond, that the podium was tested and records were tested. That's how I understood it.
Maybe policy, but not reality, in my experience. I won quite a few nationals before I started setting those national records. I don't think I got tested at any of those nationals either.
Yeah.
There's always people that are bigger and stronger than me because I was never a super heavyweight or anything.
Yeah.
So maybe the international stars of the time, maybe they were targeted a bit more because it's higher profile or something.
Yeah.
That's just a guess, but yeah, I've never been tested when I won nationals.
Yeah, right.
I've been tested plenty of times, a lot of local comps around Toronto and maybe state championships and that, but never at nationals when I've won it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. There you go.
Which is surprising.
It is surprising because you'd think that that's when it would be more important to do it, not at, your local meet. Obviously that's important still as well, but in the hierarchy of importance, you'd think the national level would be further up.
Yeah, sure.
But an interesting time to go. So 2015 you moved away from Powerlifting Australia.
Yeah, yes.
And you had the injury. How long did it take to come back from?
Oh, that wasn't very long at all. It was no surgery required or anything like that, which was lucky. It's a bit embarrassing. I was sitting at the computer desk. I coughed and sneezed violently at the same time, and my hand just went like that on my stomach. And I went, oh shit, that hurt. And I went, shit, there's I had my hand cupped like that on my stomach, and it was like a big lump underneath it. Yeah, right. And I said, holy shit, that's it. And the phone, I didn't have my mobile phone with me. The phone was on the handset on the other side of the lounge room, so I got down and tried to crawl over, and I couldn't make it. It was hurting trying to move. And I'm lying on the middle of the lounge room floor, spread-eagled, holding a lump in my stomach. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do here? I'm stuck. And after a half hour or so, the lump went away. But just a quick reaction of my hand going on my stomach and the pressure just pushed it back in.
Yeah, right.
And that was a week and a half, 2 weeks before the Nationals. And I said, I rang Mr. Wilkes, or emailed him. I said, look, I can't do it. And I was supposed to be meet director. I don't think he was too happy about it, judging by the email. But that was sort of the beginning of the end with PA. And a few years later, a similar thing happened in the exact same spot. I was doing doing crunches for a change. Crunches. I just burn it. It was burning. I thought, this is good. I'm burning. Next thing you know, oh shit, it's happened again. And my wife came running in from the lounge room because the garage is attached to the front of the house. Yep. She could hear me yell out. She says, I'm lying on the floor holding my feet up. And what are you doing? I think I'd done a hernia again. And that time I got it scanned, and I didn't get a scan or anything the first time. I got it scanned, said, there's a hernia, but it's repaired itself, and just take it easy. Yeah. Yeah, there was no dramas. That was in 2020, I think.
Yeah. I think it's funny that how the amount of powerlifting injuries that are the result of normal life situations that shouldn't. It's like, I tore my calf trampolining with the kids. I lost my balance as I bounced into a foam pit. My wife had bullied me, and I'm going to say that on camera. She bullied me to go jump on the trampoline, and I said no because every time I jump on the trampoline with the kids, I get hurt. Like at a trampoline park, like the one around the corner here. And I was like, no, I'm not going on. She's like, go on, take the little fella on. He'd love it. And we went on, we're having a ball. And then so my eldest son's like, come and jump off into the foam pit with us. And I did that, and I bounced really high. And as I went to launch into the foam pit, I lost my balance and went forward a bit. And my calf just tore.
That's why you didn't make it to Paris 2024 for trampolining.
Yeah. No, I certainly was a lot better at trampolining when I was 15. I used to love it and was quite good at it, but I'm not so good at it at 40. But it's always silly life things. So speaking of injuries, in such an extensive amount of competing and training, I know I keep saying that and I'm making you feel old. It's more impressive to me. I don't want to make you feel old. Because a lot of people come into the sport now, they compete for 5 years and they're gone. You've been here since 93. That's 30 years. How many injuries have you had, and what's the worst?
I've never had to have surgery for an injury.
Yep.
I've had some tears. The major ones probably 10, 11 years ago. Tore me left calf, hole in the middle of the calf like that, dragging a 150 kilo sled out in the footpath.
Yep.
Done a few trips, And as I was coming back, pushing off my left leg, I thought the chain had snapped and hit me in the calf. And I thought, hang on, if that had happened, I would have fell forward. But then I realised I went to turn around, I couldn't walk. Then all of a sudden the pain hit in. Oh, shit, I've torn my calf. So scanned it. Doctor said, don't do anything for 6 weeks. I said, when I've got an injury, I tend to do more workouts. But they're targeted, or not targeted, within reason.
Yeah.
Like I was squatting 280, 290 at the time. So to do a 60 kilo box squat was almost like getting up out of the dinner chair at dinner time. So the next day, that was on a Wednesday night. Thursday morning, I took Thursday and Friday off work. Thursday morning, I went down to the local indoor pool, 42 laps, just walking all different directions. The Friday, I'd done 45 laps. And the Saturday, I thought, the best way to make something stronger is use weights. So I thought, righto, I could just do some box squats with no weight, up and down in the gym. Done that, that's all right. I'll use an empty bar, that was all right. I used a 60 kilo, and that was all right. And I thought I was too scared to go higher than that, so I just used that for a few easy sets of 10. Done the same on the deadlift. So that was 3 days, and I still got this big hole in my calf. And there was no pain. I thought, right, that's good. I'll leave it there. I'll build from that next week. And like 2.5 weeks after I'd done it, I'm hitting PBs and glute ham raises. I thought, well, I've got to at least try it. Okay, yeah, not hurting at all. I'll just keep going. If I do this, I'll be happy with that. I'm not going to go any further. But I ended up going until I was hitting repetition PBs on it. There's another one I was doing. I hadn't deadlifted for quite a while. A few years later, I was doing conventional for some reason. I normally sumo. Tore my hamstring. Oh, here we go again. Rehab. They're the two probably major ones that I've had, but a couple of years ago, I had an accumulation in my back, 5 lower discs, all bulging, one of them bulging on a nerve pretty severely. I couldn't walk. I was in a huge amount of pain, incredible amount. I thought, I'm never going to be able to powerlift again. I'm going to be stuck on 95, 96 comps. It really pissed me off when I realised that. I thought, if I can't powerlift again, I'm not going to get to 100. Yeah. And I seen Dave Tate, Elite Fitness, watched one of his videos, the warm-up routine that he gets the lifters that train there to do. One of them is hanging leg raises every warm-up. He says not just hanging down or in the elbow straps, but hanging from your hands, from the chin bar, because it distracts the spine. And at first, if that made sense to me, at first I couldn't even get my knees up to hip height because of the pain in my back. And so I thought, well, I've got to work on just getting my knees up there. So I do half reps, a few sets of as many half reps as I can, and then knees up. And eventually I just do them, feet right up to face height, and that's fine. Yep. And I think that made a big difference in that. So they're probably the 3 major injuries that have happened. A lot of them are probably from pushing too hard at times, especially when I was younger, doing things. And I look back now and I think, how did I do that sort of workout? Like hitting maxes on everything. And but yeah, as far as injury wise, I've had little tiny tears here, a bit of a niggle and shoulder injury here and there, but they're the 3 major ones I've had. So I've been lucky, really, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
No surgery.
Well, that's pretty good in 30 years of competing and doing a lot in the sport. That's and pushing pretty hard. That's a pretty good list of injuries. I think my list of injuries is like the last 2 years I've got that amount of injuries. I think that's one of the downsides of starting training later in life is that I don't have the accumulation of strength in my tendons, muscles, joints, all that stuff. I'm building it for the first time. It's good because my training age is lower, but I'm running into other injuries. The
old age
quicker.
Problems.
Yeah, they're like old age issues, but because I'm pushing like a 20-year-old on other things, I'm running into, like I tore both hamstrings separately last year, before comps.
Yep.
The last 2 comps I did, I've torn, and they're not significant tears, but they're tears enough to put you out for a few weeks.
Well, I've been in, I think, 5 or 6 weight divisions, including that one comp at 82.
Yeah.
And I stayed in the 90s too long. I was losing 10 kilos in 10-week prep to stay in 90s because I was aiming for 700. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I'd just miss it by a lift or something, and I've got to do all this again, you know. But that's what happens. I used to get sick. I was getting sick leading into comps because I was just pushing too hard. You're training that hard, pushing myself, and I was just getting sick. I just had to go up, you know, like a few days after comp, I'd be back to 97, 98.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah. But the comps, 6 weight divisions. I mean, I lifted into 120s, but I was only, my heaviest I got was 110.
Yeah.
But because 105, it went up to 120.
Yeah.
I was a very light 120.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see what I could lift, though, if I got to 120, but I wouldn't have been healthy putting that weight on.
I think that there's a few of us in that boat. I accidentally put on 10 kilos last year between comps. I just wasn't paying attention to the scale. And
Accidentally?
Yeah, I totally. It was like I hadn't weighed myself. I did nationals at like 130, and then I just didn't wear my canvas suit for ages, and I was just in my briefs, and I was noticing that my briefs were getting a bit tight. I was like, I might just be bloated today or whatever, because I fluctuate a bit, carrying a bit of fat. My torso fluctuates in size, so I'm like, just a fat day, whatever. And then I think my youngest son was weighing himself, and I jumped on the scales because I'm like, I haven't jumped on the scales in ages, and I hopped on and I was 141, and I was 129 at the comp under a year before that. And I hadn't competed, and I was like, oh dear. And I just walked out of the bathroom, and my wife was like, what did you weigh? And I'm like, not telling you. So I had to cut weight to get into the 140s, which I comfortably sat 10 kilos under 140 for ages. And then all of a sudden I just blew up.
What's part of we're talking about a bit of the OCD. You know, there for many years, I'd be weighing myself nearly every morning.
Yep.
Get up, go to the toilet, weigh myself before I get dressed.
Yep.
I knew Mondays was always my heaviest day, and Saturdays were always my lightest day. Leading up to the Nationals, just gone recently, which we'll talk about that soon, I suppose. But because I've had a lot of stomach issues, like gut problems, reflux, or whatever it was. The doctors had no idea what it was. I had a battery test in the last 18 months. They still don't know what it is. And I ended up, when I come back to APL, I had the first comp I had to pull out. The stomach is cramping too bad. And I thought, right, no way I'm ever going to be 100 kilo again. I'm coming down to 90. And I hadn't been there since early 2000s, down in the 90s. So I was weighing myself every morning. And leading into the Nationals, I was actually about 2.5 kilos light. I thought, shit, so I worked out, you know, what's a pound of fat's 3,500 calories? And I was like, I've got to put on 2.5 kilos in the next 3 weeks. So I worked out how many extra calories that is a day. So it was basically, I don't know, another glass of milk a day, or have a serve of oats 2 or 3 times a week, similar things like that. I came in, I think, 89.85. But being in the weight divisions, I've had to keep a very close eye on my weight the whole time. Because when I let go after I left the 90s, that I didn't weigh myself that much, but I'm glad I started weighing myself because it gets out of control, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, well, I started weighing myself more often now. Well, for ages I sat like without worry. Kind of like my training weight was like 133, 134, and I never got above that. And if I came down, it was usually because I wasn't training, or like something had happened, like I'd gotten sick. But I just sat around that weight, and I'd usually go into comp about 130. So I didn't pay much attention to it because I was like, well, that's how it's been for years. And then suddenly, it was like 10 kilos in like 6 months or something. And I was like, where the hell did that come from? We'd done a bunch of raw bench volume, and I put on heaps of size on my upper body, which because I noticed my shirt didn't fit anymore. I had to swap shirts. And I was like, oh, this one's tight now. It used to be loose. I'm like, that's good. But obviously that had been a contributor to the weight gain as well. But yeah, it wasn't all fat. So one of the things that's obvious is that you've spent a lot of this time learning as much as you can about how to train, whether it's how to eat for training or how to train around injuries or how to just get stronger in general. What would be, like, obviously Louie and Westside was a big influence. What are some of the biggest things you kind of figured out in your time of training for yourself just by experimentation?
For myself.
So like leading into a meet, for example, like what have you figured out is the best way to peak yourself that you can kind of replicate?
Well, I think especially since I've been a masters lifter, excuse me, especially since I've been a masters lifter, I have to pay a lot more attention to how I'm feeling recovery wise.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm really not feeling it that day, I've got to just back off, whether it's just get on the exercise bike and do some sit-ups, hanging leg raises, a few push-ups or something. If there's a day I really don't feel like pushing it, don't push it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when an injury will happen. You can get away with it. When I was younger, do some crazy amount of volume, and I'd be doing full-on workouts the day before a comp. Because one Louie Simmons asked, they train right up to a comp. So I took it as okay, normal speed squat day on Friday, Saturday comp. That's the way I took it. And it didn't really affect me because I was young. But there's no way I'd do something stupid like that now. But really, for me, especially leading into that last Nationals, I really had to focus on how I was recovering, sleep, not eating too much, really trying to think of any foods that might leave me feeling a bit bloated. Okay, I'm not eating that anymore. Mm-hmm. That's probably one of the biggest things that I can think of for myself.
When did you notice that you had to start paying attention to that more? Was there a point that was around age or around injury or?
Well, I think my recovery definitely slowed once I hit 40. Mm-hmm. But the stomach issues I started having 18 months ago, it was just on another level, the pain, the sickness I was in sometimes. And so really since then, I mean, I'm not an expert on it. I wouldn't claim to be, and but I had to start looking into more gut health. I'd always tried to be healthy and exercise and eat well and that, but that's the one thing I really had to focus on was gut health and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's for quite a while I cut out all dairy. I didn't have any dairy at all. That may be affecting me, no symptoms are still there. So I don't have much dairy anymore, but still have a little bit of milk, not much. I used to have a lot of eggs in the morning, egg whites on toast with a few yolks and that sort of thing. Have I got an allergic reaction to eggs now or something? So I didn't have any eggs, and I started having avocado, spinach leaves and shaved chicken breast on and sourdough every morning. And I think in conjunction with that and changing brands of protein powders, which so many of them, as you probably know, are full of shit, protein powders. I think all that and, just paying attention to gut health and how I'm recovering from workouts because, over the course of a 3-month or 6-month prep for a comp, or 18 months as what mine was for the last Nationals. If you take a step away from one workout, it's not really going to have a negative effect 6 months later on comp day. It might actually help you, especially if you're training hard regularly, an extra day or two here or there. But, the recovery, that's a big thing, especially lately.
So how many days would you train now normally in a week?
Well, I do something physical every day. Like today, I won't be training today, but I'll get home, I'll get on the exercise bike while I'm just flipping through Instagram or whatever. I might do a few hanging leg raises, a few chin-ups and a few band push-downs just to get some blood flowing, But I do basically 4 main Westside style workouts, not on the same days Louie popularised, but basically the speed bench Sundays, max effort squat and deadlift Tuesdays, Thursdays is max effort bench, and Saturday afternoons is the speed squat and deadlift.
Yeah.
All the other days are geared towards getting on the bike and helping recovery or whatever. I hate missing workouts. Sorry, Tammy, but I do. It's my wife. But if I have to miss them, I'd prefer to miss the midweek ones. Yeah. Because there's a lot more training volume on the weekends, so I feel that I've benefit from doing those ones more so than doing the midweek ones and missing the weekend ones.
Yep.
But, I'm not going to be able to train tomorrow. Going down to Sydney with my young bloke. He's checking out a college, physical education college at Homebush or something. So that's all right. Missing that for a great reason,
Yep.
So no dramas. I'll do it Sunday or maybe not do it at all.
Yep.
No comps on the horizon, so I train hard when I can, and yeah.
So obviously, I think I know the answer to this, but obviously throughout figuring out your own training around the conjugate system, how Westside would set it out, how much have you learnt to auto-regulate how to push? So on a max effort day, are you just going till max effort, or will you pull it up early sometimes?
Up until probably a few years ago, I'd just go balls to the wall until I could hit a 1 rep max.
Yeah.
If I didn't hit it, I'd be pissed off.
Would you give yourself a retake on a max effort day?
It depends. If I unracked a squat and box squat and I hit the bench and didn't come up, no.
Yeah.
If I missed it for some stupid reason, like I forgot to brace properly or something, I was coming up and I lost a bit of balance or something, bugger, and I'd have to do that again,
Yeah.
Now, this part of learning recovery as I'm getting older and watching some podcasts with Matt Wenning recently, you don't have to hit 100% all the time to get stronger.
Yeah.
If I'm hitting at least in the 90 to 100% range and I don't feel like it's going to happen that day, I've hit something heavy in that range and I go and do a bunch of light accessory and I'm done. Now, I think that change of mindset, that's one thing I really worked on as well leading up to the last Nationals. And since then, I've really tried to focus that because I hate missing maxes in the gym.
Yep.
I hate it with a passion. So now I haven't failed a PR attempt in the gym since Nationals. It's been, a few months now.
Yeah.
I haven't attempted one every week, but I haven't failed one when I have attempted it. I've attempted it most weeks.
And for some context, they're a variation PR, not just a squat, bench, deadlift competition PR.
Might be, what did I do? Had me young bloke help me the other day. Some sort of a rack lockout.
Yep.
I haven't done it for a long time. And look, last time I'd done it, if I'd done it 4 or 5 years ago and I was in the 100 kilo division, I'm not counting it because the 10 kilo difference in 5 years of age, but I'm talking about since I've come back down to 90, I'm trying to hit those PBs.
Yep.
If last time I'd done it might have been 6 months ago, okay, I hit this weight. So I worked up to another 2.5 kilo over that and done it quite easily. And I'm about 3 kilos below comp weight now.
Yep.
So I'm losing weight and I'm getting stronger. And I think a lot of that is just really focusing on when I'm ready to go and when I'm not ready to go.
So one of the points of, and I like what Matt Wenning talks about in that strength, and it's something I preach as well, largely thanks to him, is that you're looking for 3 reps over 90% of a given variation to have a strength adaptation.
Yep.
So if you don't know what 90% is, then you start taking small jumps when stuff gets kind of hard.
Yep.
But you don't have to hit 100 or near 100. You could hit 90, 91, 92. There you go. Strength adaptation. You're going to get better from it. So that doesn't necessarily have to be as hard as you think it is on a max effort day. But then you think about the one thing that Louie's always preached and the Westside method really preaches is the max effort, and Dave Tate even, the max effort method teaches you to strain.
Yep.
So it's got to be hard enough. So if you're not straining on that 2.5 kilo PB that you took on the rack lockout, you did it quite easily. Do you take another one?
I didn't know.
No. You just took the PB and went, right.
That's one of the big changes I've made in the last 18 months, a few years. I haven't been able to successfully hold myself back every time. Sometimes you just want to keep improving. You want to keep pushing. You're feeling good. You go a bit extra and you think, shit, I should have stopped. But most of the time now, I hit a PB, that's it.
Yep.
And finished with a positive, rather than, shit, I got that PB, but I strained my shoulder trying to push too hard. I should have stopped, as you just cannot keep doing that over and over.
No.
You know, for like you say, I've been competing since '93, so that's '90s, 2000s, teens, and 20s. That's 4 decades. I've been competing, and you just can't keep going all out all the time.
Yeah,
but you can still keep improving, but you don't have to go all out to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a very good lesson for people to learn, especially within the kind of conjugate context. Is that it doesn't have to be like a 1 RM max effort. It has to be hard, or better than last time, and that's probably going to be enough. Like you got to try and get volume on the way up. It's like, I'm sure you've had this criticism of Westside before. It's like there's not enough volume for people to get better because you're just doing a 1 RM and then moving on to accessories. It's like, no, well, you're meant to take small jumps on that 1 RM. You're not doing it like a comp. Yeah. Is that something that you do in the gym? Do you take big jumps, or do you kind of get to a certain point and then start taking smaller ones to make sure you get that kind of volume? Or would you get that volume on the back end on an accessory?
I did take a big jump last night, actually. My young bloke said, you shouldn't have done that. I said, yeah, I know. So I dropped it down a little bit, then I got a PB. So I still got a PB even though I missed one. Yeah. I jumped too high on it. But
we can't be smart all the time.
We can't, no. One thing, as I've gotten a bit older, another change I've made, I'm trying to get more of my volume from the accessories. I think it's impressive as hell doing heaps of high rep squats with big weights and that sort of thing, but the wear and tear in the joints and doing that sort of thing, I'd rather use the classical lifts for your max effort or your speed work, and get the high rep stuff out of the assistance work. I think there's a bit less wear and tear on the joints, connective tissue and that. So I'm still keen to hit more records and push myself, but I want longevity more than I want a record these days. Whereas longevity, I didn't even know how to spell it when I was in my 20s. Not literally, but you know the message.
Yeah. So how are you setting out your dynamic days? Do you follow like the kind of the Westside standard?
Pretty much. I'd mainly do. I'm happy if I get 8 sets speed squats. If I only feel like doing 6, I'll stop at 6. Usually doubles. I've found doing the 5 sets of 5, how they've been recommended for a few years, it's too much strain on my shoulders and that. That constant tension 5, all the bands and that sort of thing. Deads, if I'm doing, say, sets of 4 or 5 on the speed deads, I might only do 3 sets. Excuse me. But normally I stick to doubles and do 6 to 8 sets of them. Then I'll get on the reverse hyper and do a few sets of 20 or 30 reps. And I made myself a glute ham raise that knee pad can tilt. So I do it, start it flat, do a warm up set, tilt it, do another set, and maybe hold small plate and do a few sets on that sort of thing. Then speed bench, I might. One thing my friend Dan messaged me, the Westside system, contrast. So on the max effort day, might be doing like you work up to a 1 rep max on a board press, and might do a close grip bench press for a few heavy sets of 3 to 5 reps, because that's got some heavy assistance work. So I've got to contrast that on the speed day. This is my understanding of what he told me anyway. And that's why a lot of the time you see Louie used to recommend the 2 to 3 sets of high rep dumbbell presses and that sort of thing, because it contrasts the other day. And so I do things like alternate dumbbell presses. I found that with the hands like that as opposed to like that really helped my shoulder getting better. So I do an alternate. Rings, gymnastic rings. I've got a set of them hanging off the power rack. Your feet up on the bench, push-ups with them because they're really unstable. So I'm trying to do unstable things to build stability in my shoulder. That's what I was doing on that high rep day, rather than doing it on a heavy day, because of more weight, there's more strain. So the high rep, I'm sort of burning more blood through the joint. That's what my theory is anyway. And that seemed to make a bit of positive change before the nationals. So it's been pretty consistent. Hamstrings, abs, lower back, all my assistance work on the lower days and upper days. I'm doing one day I might be doing heavy barbell extensions. The other day I'll do dumbbell extensions and some push downs. Then it's chin ups or pull downs or rowing, bit of upper back work, and sometimes I drag the sled up the front doing raises and up and down the footpath. Tricep work with the sled. If my shoulders are feeling a bit crook, I don't want to press anything, I'll just go out and drag the sled and pull it backwards for the rear delts and that.
Well, the great thing for recovery, because it's concentric only, it's not, there's no eccentric loading, so there's no recovery from the damage of the eccentric loading because it's concentric only. It's essentially just a recovery modality.
And try to explain it to some people back in the 90s why I was taking an old pallet down to the football oval and putting weights in it and dragging it. They're like, what are you doing? This is more, I was recovering, boosting me recovery. But you got to recover from,
it.
But, yeah, it's you're right.
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's like, it is more work, but the work that you're doing, because it doesn't build the fatigue the same way, it actually boosts that, recovery period, that supercompensation cycle. You're going to get better quicker.
Yeah.
So it's, I think you can chuck mini workouts, as Louie would call them, in and get worse because you're doing too much.
Yeah.
But it's easy to chuck on a sled and drag a sled, and the recovery from that's pretty minimal.
Well, that's one thing I was doing before the recent nationals was on the off days I wasn't training, particularly the day after a workout, I'll be on the exercise bike. If I just done speed bench, the next day I'll be on the exercise bike before dinner. I'd get off, I'd do a few sets of chin-ups and a few sets of band push-downs. If it's the day after a lower body, I'll be on the exercise bike just to get some blood flowing. Then I'd get off and I'd do a few sets of hyper-extensions and some hanging leg raises. Just little things like that. I really think that helped me recovery as well.
It's something that today's kind of vernacular would be that they're called, active recovery. Yeah. That's what they call it. But I think you can do it wrong because you do too much. You think, I feel good because you're moving. It's like, you feel good because you're moving, but you got to do the right stuff. So I think you've got it nailed there with what you're doing, listening to your body and having enough time over, decades of training to kind of figure out, well, this isn't working now, so we need to change that, or this is working. And
if only I knew then what I know now.
I think we're all a bit like that. And it's like, I should have done that sooner. So nationals, you did nationals just this year recently, which was, when was that?
It was Kangaroo Point. It was APL tested nationals. That was in June.
It was in June, that's right. And you did quite well.
Yeah, I was very happy.
Yeah.
In the past, I have lifted way more weight in the past. What I'm squatting now, I was bench pressing pretty much back in the day. But 4 years ago, or nearly 4 years ago, my father died. There were some other issues around the time, not with him or anything, but and a few months after that, I lost my job, and they just ran out of work. And so it was a pretty bad point. And he was a massive, massive influence on me. He still is to this day. And he used to help me out with suits and all that sort of thing. And I wanted to do another comp, but have my son coach me at the comp as a sort of like a goodbye to that era type of thing. And then some dramas happened with I couldn't compete with the comp APU. There was a mix-up with trying to sign up for states or whatever.
Right.
And I didn't end up doing it. And I thought, shit, when am I going to be able to compete again? And probably a couple of years went by. I was still training occasionally, but I didn't have that desire to do it because I didn't have a comp lined up. And I started watching a couple of APL comps at Lift 3 at Tuggerah. And I went down in, I think, March a couple of years ago. I watched one. I thought, gee, this is run really well. I went down again in August or later in the year, and I watched another one. And I thought, gee, I'm going to compete next year in this one. And so that was when I had my first comeback comp with them 18 months ago. And I actually worked out if I do that comp, the one in December, and then the state titles in March this year, the nationals this year will be my 100th comp. So, all right, I'm going to do these comps. Last year, if I went to the nationals last year, but I didn't, it would have been on me the day I turned 49.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, I'll go to the Nationals here. It'll be my 50th birthday. So that was the whole game plan for like 18 months, 2 years, to get to the Nationals this year and have my son there coaching me. And there were some memorable moments, like the first main comp the second one he coached me in, which is the first one I completed with him. The first one I had to pull out because of stomach issues. Mm-hmm. December last year, there was one moment, because there's some old photos of me and Dad back in the early 2000s, because you got your bench sheet on, you got it set. If you lift your arms up, it rides up, and you know. So to keep it set, I used to rest my arms on his shoulders.
Yeah.
So while I'm waiting for my attempt, and so I said to Jack, my young bloke, I said, that's what I've got to do. So you come here just before I get called out. We'll pull it down. I'll just rest my arms on his shoulders, righto. And I missed my first bench. I missed my second one. Like, I can't remember. There's a couple of technicalities or something. I can't remember what it was. So I was like, damn, this is my comeback comp. The first one I'm going to ride in, I'm going to bomb out in this.
Yeah.
And I'm going up. I got my hands out on his shoulders. My wife snapped a photo, and it's only happened once or twice. It's happened. I'm standing there and I heard his voice. I said, "Come on, mate, you'll be right." It was my dad's voice. And I'm standing there like this, and I think that's when she took the photo. Mm-hmm. I went out there, and I knew I was going to get it before I got on the platform. Yeah. It was one of those feelings. And, that was a pretty special moment. And had another moment like that at the Nationals just gone. Mm-hmm. It was I turned 50 on the Monday. We drove up to Brisbane on the Tuesday, weighed in on the Wednesday, walking around Kangaroo Point at like 4 a.m. Beautiful. I just couldn't wait to get there, And I had some relatives, one of my dad's sisters and her husband, and Louise and Rob. They were there, and 3 squats went fine. I got a tweak in my shoulder, warming up in the bench press, and I knew everything was stronger going in the bench press. But I got me second, but missed me third. But only at lockout, it just started drifting out, and I couldn't lock this arm out because of what happened in the warm-up room. Mm-hmm. And I came out for the deadlift. The deadlift warm-ups felt really strong. First deadlift, I went down to grab the bar, and I got this feeling in the stomach like I was going to spew. This burping. I couldn't stop burping. And I thought, shit, the clock's going to run out. I pulled it up. And as I pulled it right up, I got a massive cramp in my left calf, and I had to dump it. Mm. I thought, shit, I've never had that burping before, and I've never had cramps like that before. So just to play it safe, I took the same weight, 230, I think, on a second attempt. And when same sort of thing, the burping, I thought, what's going on here? So I just tried to do it slow and controlled because I didn't want to, spew or anything. Yeah. And I stood up there, down, 2 reds. What? And I didn't lock the knees out properly. I thought, okay, well, it's fair enough. I'd really wanted to get it because I wanted to go 250, 255 or 260 or something on my third attempt. That was my whole game plan. Yeah. Everything was way stronger leading into this comp. I knew I had way more in me. But rules are rules. I prefer them to be strict than loose, And so my auntie and uncle sitting up there. We'd travelled up there, taken a week off work, having a holiday up there, take my son out of school, which I didn't like doing, but I thought, well, only time in 12 years I've ever done it. Right, we're up there. I thought, 18 months this is. And by this stage, the warm-up room had pretty much cleared because the lifters had finished lifting, so there's a lot more room to walk around. I had the music going on my headphones. I told me, I'm like, tell them 240. I wanted to go 250, 260, but I didn't know how the gut or the cramp was going to affect me on this last one. Mm-hmm. But I knew I had more than 230. I thought if I fail 240, it's the same result as failing 230. I'll bomb out. But if I get it, it's more weight. So I rolled the dice. I said, just tell them 240. And some people, 240, missed 230 twice, but I knew how my training had been going and I trusted it. Yeah. And I was walking around a warm-up room and I had that same feeling at that comp. He was there. He was helping me. Yep. And I'm not one to yell and scream. I think that's just a waste of energy for me anyway. I get distracted, you start slapping, you hurt yourself or hurt someone else, whatever. I sort of try to get really emotional. And my young bloke came up to me. I still had the headphones blaring. Now he grabbed me, he said, "Oi, come here," and grabbed my shirt and pulled me in. And I thought he was just going to put my arms up on his shoulders like that again. So I'd done that. But then he grabbed me in close, put his head against me, and he's yelling at me. I don't know what he was saying. At the time, I knew what he was saying after, and I probably can't say it on here. It's not a family show, is it? But when he'd finished, I don't know what he was saying, but he took the headphones off. Thunderstruck was mid-song blaring out through the loud speaker system. One of my favourite bands, or my favourite band, one of my favourite songs. And I walked out onto that platform. I had tears just streaming down my face. I couldn't wait to get hold of that thing. I'd done a practice deadlift in the warm-up area just down to grab the bar, and there was no burping issues. I thought, right, I'm right to go. I went out there, went to grab the bar. Oh, shit. I can't stop it. It's worse than ever it was. But I had so much adrenaline in me. It was just instantly I just flicked this switch and I thought, I don't care if I spew, pass out, cramp, the whole body goes in cramp. I don't give a shit. I'm pulling this weight. And I'm going to stand there and I'm going to hold it longer than they say, and I'm not going to put it down till I'm ready. Yeah. And it was the easiest deadlift of the whole day. I pulled it up there. I looked straight up at my wife, my auntie Louise and Rob up there, and nodded and looked around. And I said, down, put it down. I held it there, looked around, and eventually put it down. 3 white lights. The first thing I thought, like Ronnie Coleman says, damn, I should have put more weight on. But I walked in the warm-up room, and my young bloke, he just leaped up, gave me a big bear hug, just gave me a big hug. And, that meant the world to me, He's a special kid. He helps out, the board presses, whatever, shirt, whatever. But that particular day, that's what I'd trained that moment. I couldn't have give a shit if I come dead last out of 100 people or whatever. Yeah. But I wanted one more big comp. I wanted to have to pull a big weight on the last deadlift. Mm-hmm. And I wanted my son coaching me. Yeah. And that was sort of like saying goodbye to that previous era where Dad used to help me. Now I'm a young bloke there. Yeah. And, it was like I think I would have come first if I'd lifted 40 kilos less. I've lost comps but been the happiest bloke there, and I've won comps and been most pissed off there. It's never been about winning a gold medal or a plaque or anything. It's about pushing myself to get the best out of me. And that's what it's always been about, and that's what it's still about now. And that comp at the Nationals, the way it was run, the guy on the microphone, he got the crowd hyped up. I could hear people screaming, the music going, everything was just first class. I can't fault the APL comps one bit from my experience. And to have him there, my young bloke, on that day, my wife up in the stands supporting me, auntie, she was like one of my dad's sisters up there, and her husband, Uncle Rob. I've lifted way more weight in the past, but that was all-time easiest, hands down favourite moment competing. Yeah. Yeah. And if that's my last comp, I'll be a happy man. Yeah. Finish that way. But I would like to lift again, but if I don't, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Yeah. It was a great moment.
So obviously your dad was there a lot during all the comps. Yeah. When you were competing. Was he like it pretty much at everyone?
Oh yeah, in those days a 2-hour weigh-in, so we'd get up at and Mum would come down in the car too. We'd drive to Sydney or Melbourne at Nationals, get down there, we'd weigh in, so they'd be sitting around while we're weighing in, and then sitting around a couple of hours until we start, and then sitting around a couple more hours until I start lifting and that sort of thing. And you always appreciate it as a kid or a young person when your parents are helping you and that. But it's impossible to understand why they do it until you're in that situation. Mm-hmm. I watched my young bloke, he's mad on basketball. And, I go in there. Sometimes they play at like 8:30, 8:45 at night.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we don't get home until after 10 o'clock. By the time I wind down and get to bed, and, I might be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's bloody hard sometimes.
Yeah.
But, I'd rather do that than sit at home and miss the game, because you just want to be there to watch, encourage them and that sort of thing.
Yep.
They have massive influence on me.
Mm. And you were saying yesterday when we were chatting that your son is getting into strength and conditioning now too.
He is, yeah. He's training well. He's had a broken hand.
Mm-hmm.
Hurt his hand playing basketball at school 6 or 7 weeks ago. It was a bit sore. He said, well, don't pull out of the game Wednesday night just yet. We'll just see how it goes. And, okay. Played half a game. It was hurting too much. He pulled out at half time. X-rays the next day, it's broken.
Yep.
He broke it, played half a game of basketball with a broken hand. So he hadn't done a lot of training in the last 6 weeks or so. But he's mad about increasing his vertical jump.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing anything. I've made little leg curl attachments for my power rack. You can do standing leg curls, belt squats. He's pushing pretty hard on the safety squat bar now. He's deadlifted, close to 1.5 times his body weight. Mm-hmm. He's only 60 kilo. Actually, 60 kilo, he deadlifted 100. And he hadn't really done that many heavy deadlifts. He'd done it pretty easily. Mm. But he hadn't trained that sort of thing for probably close to 2 months now because of his broken hand.
Yeah.
But he's, I think he's looking at going down the strength and conditioning route. So you might be able to teach the old bull a few tricks.
Yeah. Well, it's a nice kind of lineage that you got into kind of strength and physical culture because of admiration for your own dad being strong, and now your son's doing a similar thing because he's been around the physical culture and strength. Obviously, that's going to rub off at some point. He's a part of it and he's interested in it. So that's a very nice lineage to and hopefully he continues it on when he has a son, maybe.
Well, it's funny you talk about that. When I told him the story of when my dad told me he benched 400 and I said, I'm going to bench 500.
Yeah.
He looked at me. He's 16 now. He's probably 8 or 9 or maybe even less. He looked at me and said, I'm going to bench 600. So I don't know that he'll go push it that hard. But yeah, I'll start again. I've never tried to force it onto him. I've always tried to encourage him to do it. If he doesn't want to do it on a particular day, I'll say, okay, well, that's fine. If you don't want to train for this week, that's fine. But if you want to get to this level, there's a lot of little steps you've got to take to get there. Mm-hmm. I think he's understands that now. Like I say, with his broken hand, he hasn't done much upper body, but he is pushing pretty hard on the lower body strength work and doing lots of jump work a few times a week and that sort of thing. And he's enjoying doing legs more so than upper body, which is really weird because not many people enjoy lower body than upper body.
No, especially not teenagers. They're all about the chest and chest bites and tries.
Yeah, that's it.
But that's very cool. I have it's very similar. My old man played AFL, well, Victorian football, and was a volleyballer, and he's done everything, right? So if you ask my dad anything, he's done it before, and he's done it to a high level. Now that I'm a coach, he's like, oh, when I used to coach volleyball, and so he's got all these stories, which is awesome. But I always joke that he's done every single thing that a human can do because anytime I mention anything, he's done it.
Yep.
He benched 165 in the gym once. He originally told me it was 185, and he said pounds, and I was like, that's not a very big bench. He's like, no, kilos. And I'm like, that's a very big bench. And then he rounded it down to 165. But so my goal was to always outbench him too. My first multiply meet, and I know it's not the same as doing it raw, but the numbers still bigger. He came to my first multiply meet. It was in Dubbo. We were living in Victoria, and he drove up with me and spent the weekend. And first time he'd ever seen me compete, and I benched 170. I was like, yes, I beat him. I still look forward to when I can do it raw properly and he can see that. But
well, that's one thing with my dad. He's 24 years old in 67, working in Mount Isa, bench 400 pounds.
yeah,
I've benched 500, but that was single ply.
yeah,
My best raw is 175 kilo.
yeah,
So I never actually beat him.
yeah,
So he used to remind me of that occasionally when I used to say I bench 500.
yeah,
But, I mean, it wouldn't have been comp strict back in the 60s when he done it and that sort of thing. But to me, it's anyone you can handle that sort of weight raw, it's very impressive whether it's comp strict or not.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Especially back those days.
Yeah. Well, that's some bull strength right there. That's just strong man stuff,
Yeah.
I think. So that's kind of, my old man was the same. He worked on farms and worked on cars and was just strong. I always grew up just going, he's strong. And he never did anything, never trained weights or anything when I was alive anyway that I saw.
Well, that was a bit like my old man. He was a rigger on building sites and that sort of thing, like carry oxy bottles up to the Boilermakers, up ladders, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I thought, I heard that. Oh, yeah, I'll get to work next day, pick an oxy bottle. I thought, oh, shit, no way I'm going up a ladder with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think general population those days were probably in better shape than general population these days.
Yeah. Just strong through work.
Because you just had to use your body to do things, whereas these days it's automated. You don't have to leave your home.
Which is probably, I always can kind of contribute that to a rise in gym culture or strength culture being as big as it is, and like people wanting to get big and strongman being much more popular and powerlifting exploding like it has. It's because we actually crave to be strong and working hard, and we don't get it in normal life because 90% of the work we do is automated. So
that's the old GPP.
that's it.
That's what it's like. What's GPP back in the 60s or 70s? It's just living to a large extent.
Mm.
But
now we have to artificially create it essentially.
Yeah.
So,
But
I guess it's still a positive thing at the end of the day.
A lot of people bag CrossFit over the years. You go weightlifting, bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, whatever, you'll see some silly things.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always thought, if it's getting people exercising and moving, it's got to be a good thing.
Yeah. I think there's a certain amount of fun you can have and give CrossFit all the shit you want, There's certainly shit to be given, but you can do that for powerlifters and strongman and whatever. Like, it's all fun and games, but powerlifting wouldn't be what it is today without CrossFit.
Oh, yeah.
And strongman even wouldn't be. Like, strongman was big, but you got to thank CrossFit for bringing so many more people into
100%.
both those sports. So you can't really fault it too much at the end of the day.
Like I say, I think it's a positive thing, and, there's good and bad everywhere, isn't there?
Yeah, that's it. So if people are wanting to have a look, and I encourage them to have a look if you're listening or watching this, if you want to see some Australian powerlifting history, there's some great videos on your Instagram. So if people are wanting to check that out, where do they find you?
Toronto Barbell. Just search Toronto Barbell on Instagram, and or the website, torontobarbell.com.
Yep.
There's a limited range of equipment on there available at the moment. It's not the full range, not the racks and that I used to do. I used to have 60 or 70 different items on there. There's probably a couple of dozen at the moment because I've sort of just very busy with my full-time job.
Yep.
So that's taken priority. But, torontobarbell.com, or just look up Toronto Barbell on Instagram.
Yep.
Look for this handsome face.
Well, I appreciate you very much coming on. I've really enjoyed chatting and learning all about your history of training and wealth of knowledge around that. I look forward to running into you more in town now that we know each other's faces.
Yep.
But thanks for coming on, and we'll be back next time. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you go show notes. All Mark's information will be there. If you don't want to do the search thing, there'll be links to click, and check out my sponsors, Jack to Juiced Apparel, East Coast Supplements, and Dubbo and Hunter Performance Physio. And we'll be back again soon. Thanks for watching or listening.